Hello, friends. It is Tuesday, and we are here today, like we have been doing for every past Tuesday for the past couple of weeks. This is the Two Guys Tech Homelab Hour, and I am your host, Rich Tesla. Anyway, I am super jazzed to have you guys on today. Actually, take my headphones off because I don't need to hear anything but myself. Anyway, so I want to do some housekeeping first because there's just a few things that I want to get off my plate because there's just there's housekeeping stuff. So first things first is, as always, this is all about like talking about HomeLab, not just HomeLab but also like self-hosting. And Taylor, Jason, thank you guys so much for getting in the chat. So if you have questions about HomeLab, self-hosting, general tech questions, or just whatever, throw them in the chat because that's what this is for. Because we can do that and talk about things and answer questions and do that kind of stuff. Also, if you don't know, and I'm sure you probably do by this point, but we have a Discord. And the reason why I bring up this Discord is because it is totally free. It is there for people to talk about HomeLab, ask questions, hang out, talk with other like-minded nerdy people like myself. And also, we're doing this thing now that after the show, I'm hopping into the chat there and hanging out and talking with people. And bi-directionally speaking, since this is always unidirectional, you guys just get what I say. And look at all these people in the chat. Thank you guys so much. And lastly, and I'm Brandon said it probably shouldn't maybe necessarily talk about it, but I'm going to do it anyway. So this Thursday, I'm super excited. This Thursday at 11 o'clock Pacific time, I am a guest, the first guest of the 45 Drives What's Spinning podcast that's coming out. And so it's not out yet. It's obviously going to be out on Thursday, but go swing by their channel and the YouTube channel. Holy cow. Taylor, thank you so much. It's very, very kind of you. I appreciate that. Swing by their channel and if you can, go and listen to the What's Spinning podcast that's got me on it. When you do that, you can also chat with me, talk with me in the chat as well. So that is like the housekeeping stuff. And before we get into the nerd stuff, can I complain a little bit? I'm gonna complain. Here we go. What's a home lab? Thank you, Suburban Barbecue. A home lab is, let me get my story here first. So in the United States, and I'm assuming in a lot of other places, last Friday was Valentine's Day. The made up holiday where you spend money to show that you love somebody unnecessarily when the words I love you aren't good enough. Anyway, I like to think of myself as a good husband. So, and I'm always bad. I'm always late with like Thanksgiving, the Valentine's Day stuff. Like the day of, I'm running over to the local grocery store and buying a box of flowers and whatever. So this time that wasn't the case. I got on the interwebs on the 12th and went, let's buy some flowers, get some nice roses, and get some chocolates and all that kind of stuff, and hit purchase. And I was like, that's it. Job's done, boys. This guy is husband of the year. And put it to rest. Didn't think about it. Then a day or two later, snowpocalypse basically flooded across the United States, including my humble state of Oregon. And when it snows in Oregon, everything stops. I don't think it stops in places like Bend or the high desert areas, Mount Hood. They like that. But down here in the valley, everyone's just like, oh my God. And they stop. I mean, nobody goes to work. It's not safe. So that was Thursday. Friday, Valentine's Day, everything was basically cleared off by that point. The roads were clear. Everything was good. And I was like, okay, cool. My wife says, did you get me something for Valentine's Day? I'm like, oh, yes, I did. I did. And then Friday came. Friday went. Nothing showed up. Saturday, I'm like, it's got to be the weather. I'm going to call them. So I called the place I ordered from, which I'm like, it was ftd.com, which I'm not too happy about them, but I called them up on the phone because I guess I'm an old person and I wanted to talk to a human being. And I told the individual, I'm like, look, so I ordered these on the 12th. They were shipped roughly shortly after that. And then we had the problems. It's now been, by that point it was the 15th. So it had been 3 days and what's going on? I didn't get my stuff. And they're like, I'm sorry, sir, but we have to wait till it gets delivered. And they said, there's perishables. Like I have chocolate covered strawberries in there and there's flowers. And they're like, I'm sorry, sir. We have to wait for them to be delivered. And I said, well, when is it going to be delivered? And the guy's like, It's going to be delivered on the 18th, which is today. By the way, they did show up. And I'm like, so let me get this straight, guy. And I'm like this is like when he's like, turn the light, shine the light on the guy's face. I'm like, let me get this straight, guy. So you're saying that this is going to be in the back of a truck for 8 days. And when it gets there, and we know they're bad because it's a perishable, you're not going to do anything for me until that. And the guy says, like, there's just this huge pause, this huge, like, pregnant pause. And like, I can hear him like audibly sigh or shrug or whatever. And he's just like, yes. I'm like, cool, thanks. And I hung up because I was pissed. They did show up today. And as you can imagine, when the box was opened, the dry flowers had become dry and they were wilted, and the chocolates had started sweating. You know, this is like sweating chocolate. And it wasn't cold. It was the temperature of outside because it had been sitting in the back of a UPS truck. Long story short, here all I'm here is to say to you people is just go buy it local. Don't try to outsmart. Just don't. Just I learned my lesson. I'm sorry. Anyway, I hope you guys had a much better Valentine's Day than I did. I did sneak to the store and go buy a small box of chocolates to save my ass because I'm not stupid. But anyway. Okay, so now all of that out of the way, let's talk about what we're going to talk about on this show today. I've got a few things that I want to dig into. And first thing is, you know, if you've been watching the channel, the past couple of videos have been all about that new storage system I bought, right? The 24 bay in the 2U. Speaking of that, I owe a very public thank you to someone who's in the chat who I won't name because I don't want to do that. Thank you very much for helping me expand that storage or that memory to maximum in that host. You know who you are. Thank you. So we have the 24 node, and you know, the first video is all about like showing it to the world. Like, here it is, I'm going to build it. And then the next one is like, let's make some more content around like, can you do it yourself? And short answer is probably shouldn't do it. That's the answer. Don't bother. And so I'm ready to push it into production. So today, one of the things I want to do while we're hanging out here and chatting and talking about it and waiting for any sort of conversations you guys want to drop in the chat, let's install TrueNAS Scale on it and go through that process. So we'll do that here in a little bit. I also want to talk about this guy right here, which is technically the next video that's going to go out here in a couple of days. This is the iKOOLCORE R2 Max. And because you guys are so kind as to hang out with me, we'll talk about it and what makes it special or doesn't make it special. And then, you know, whatever time's left, we'll talk about whatever hits. So with that, I think we'll, yeah, the chat's great. The chat's blown up. A lot of these people that I'm seeing here are people who are on our Discord. So thank you guys for joining us. I love to have you guys in here too. Let's talk about TrueNAS Scale now, because it's been a long time since I've done anything with Scale. And I think it's time we do something with Scale. So I'm going to press this thing here to add to stage. I'm going to make me look bigger. I think this makes me bigger. Cool. So we're just going to, I'm not going to download the ISO because I already downloaded the ISO and I already threw it on Ventoy. By the way, do you guys know what Ventoy is? Have you heard of Ventoy before? That's a joke. Anyway, so I just kind of want to walk through the process, talk about TrueNAS Scale, why I'm using TrueNAS Scale, because it's, frankly, it's probably the best, in my opinion, the best turnkey, real, like, enterprise quality storage software that you can run at home. That's it. Ventoy is the best. Absolutely. Anyway, and I also want to, like, I'm not going to play the audio here, but I do want to say, so this is the TrueNAS.com website, right? We've all probably already been here. If you haven't, this is TrueNAS's website. If you hit the Get TrueNAS and, you know, you can get over here and download, they used to just call this TrueNAS Scale, and now it's the Community Edition. And, you know, this is where you download the ISO for TrueNAS Scale, which, again, I've already done. But I did want to show you something. If you guys play the home game, if you go to download and you wait for this to go, and you say, no, thanks, I have already signed up because I'm not going to get on their newsletter again. If you happen to watch this video and maybe a few others, listen to the voice and see if you can guess who that is. Anyway, so this is how you get it. And TrueNAS Scale is now, you know, is fully based on Linux, Debian Linux, and it's the way of the future. I don't even think you can download core anymore. Actually, let's see. Download previous versions. I'm sure you can download them, but scale. Scale, scale, scale. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. So that's funny. Still have the TrueNAS logo up there. Someone needs to update that. All right, Control Tab. Let's get it. All right, so let's talk about getting that up and running. I have a console session open. This is the host, Ultrasan, and this is its IPMI interface. This is the web interface. I'm already logged into it, so I'm going to just issue a reboot to this guy here and type in my password. And it's going to go away. Goodbye to Ubuntu. Bum, bum, bum. And we wait for this to come back up. I think it's F11. I'm just going to, if you hear a bunch of clicking noises, it's me mashing the F11, which is the boot button, the boot menu button. But it actually is a surprisingly fast booter. I've got some of my older Supermicro hosts took a long time. And that wasn't just like enumerating all the HBAs and stuff. And it just, the boot process took forever. This one is not so bad, even though I'm saying that and it feels like it's taking forever. Forever. Okay, come on, you. So, yeah, Sakura, you're right. I don't look at the console, so other than just waiting for this to right now. I'm looking at the console right now with you guys. Any second. And I still have to keep pressing the F11 button. But before we started this, and I was talking to Brandon, we were pre-gaming. Yes, this is just like the iDRAC. We're talking to Brandon, and he's like, did you make sure that you're gonna do this through IPMI? It's gonna be really slow. This is the HBA, the storage HBA that's in it. Avago, whatever you want to call it, was the company that Broadcom merged with to become the behemoth that it is now. So this is a Broadcom chipset that's in this thing, storage chipset. And we're not going to go into that because this is an HBA mode. This does not have RAID. It will show me disks in a second. There we go. Back to this. Skylar, the newer ones have HTML5. I can't remember what generation of the iDRACs had HTML5, but I think it's like the 7th. Anyway, looking at the boot menu for my Supermicro host, we're going to go ahead and boot off of the Lexar USB flash drive, which is my Ventoy. Boink. Maybe not. There it is. Come on. Go Ventoy. Go Ventoy. Go Ventoy. Come on, Ventoy. You got this. There we go. Guys, Ventoy. There it is. And I just downloaded a fresh, brand new installation, or ISO, earlier today of the TrueNAS scale. You've got some old TrueNASs in there. Look at that. I've got. You guys want some of that sweet, sweet TrueNAS core? I can hook you up. I'm kidding. Shouldn't do that. All right, let's go here. This is it. 24.10.2 is the most recent download. And we'll kick it off. And we're just going to do it in normal mode. This is on a USB 3 memory stick that's installed there. TrueNAS installation is what we want. Friends, that's where we're going. And if you're going to do this, like I was mentioning earlier, like if you try to push something through the iDRAC, I don't know why Supermicros, their IPMIs, which I think arguably are really great. And did this just fail? It did just. We might not be installing TrueNAS scale on this house, or we'll do it the hard way, which is probably not the fun way to do it. Oh, create special block file, busy box, fan fail. That's fine. Let's try again. Yeah. That's what we're here for, guys. We're here to do this, doing it live. What's the Microsoft Steve Ballmer thing? That thing, whatever it's called. All right. Anyway, so I don't want to push this through here because if we push it through, it is just wicked. So this is the deal on screen. I was saying though, the Supermicro IPMI is really slow for pushing ISOs to it, whereas the iDRACs, I think personally the iDRACs have been better. Plus the iDRACs will also show you their throughput, like you can watch it do it, and so it just gives me a little bit more confidence, instills a little bit more confidence personally. But we'll have to try another mode here for this and close this. So we'll give it one more try and then we will move on because I'm not going to waste y'all's time on this because that would be crazy. But, and it's been a long time since I've looked at an ILO. What about the virtual media button? It's enabled. That's what we'll do. If we have to, we'll do that. But it's just so slow. Like we can just sit here and like watch paint dry when it's pushing that ISO, but we'll give it a try here and see. We'll just one more try because that's what happens when you try to do a live demonstration with people on the internet. But I don't know. If in the chat you guys had any luck with the HP's ILOs, I haven't touched an HPE ILO in forever, so I couldn't even tell you if they're good or bad or equivalent or not because it's just not. Oh, we got it going in the chat now. Lots of people. I haven't been following the chat. I'm sorry. I'm trying to kick this off. Why not? What does that say? Why not OS Nexus or StarWinds? John, I think in terms of as a storage system, because if you're talking about in replacement of like say a storage system, I think the big difference for me, let's do it via UEFI. That might be my problem here, is that the StarWinds stuff specifically, from my understanding, doesn't have. I mean, it's truly just pure SAN all day, and so I like to be able to do a few other things with my TrueNAS scale. Like I do run a few containers. Like for example, I made a video about it a long time ago, but I run what is it called? I run the storage system that shares storage. That's the name of it. Storage right there. All right, let's try this one more time. Come on, big money, no whammies. That's a reference to Press Your Luck from like the 80s. So sorry about that. Yeah, cool. Well, you guys remember how I said Ventoy is cool? Let's try to do this the old-fashioned way, just for funsies. So let's go back here, and we will go back to this guy here. We will Control-Shift-Tab back, and we're going to download the stable version of the software that I already have, because we're going to do that to downloads. Wait for that to finish. While we're waiting for that to download here, let's pop out of full screen, and let's go ahead and open up a new tab, and we'll try the what's it? This OS Nexus. Let's go look at OS Nexus. QuantaStore now 6.5 now includes anomaly detection for ransom. Okay, well, so what is OS Nexus? Let's get a okay. Tell me what it is. It is software-defined storage. Okay. It's a unified storage platform designed to scale up and out to make storage management. Okay, but is it free? Because that's the other part of this is like, I'm not going to spend any money if I don't have to on this. Looks like there's a free trial. And, they have a community edition. So that's probably where it's at. Supports Ceph, OpenZFS, and Linux Foundation. Okay, well, you know what? I'll grab this and give it a try. I mean, there's not on this host. I'll throw it up as a virtual machine and play with it because I need to move my production stuff. And then we'll go look at StarWinds real quick since it was brought up. StarWinds software. Boom, StarWinds software. And I'm familiar with these guys too because they have a really nice physical to virtual and virtual to virtual conversion tool that's free that allows you to do stuff that usually costs money in terms of converting virtual machines between different hypervisor types. But I think that though, and you'll have to remind me in the chat if that's the case, but I think that StarWinds is, I mean, just like probably OS Nexus, is purely just storage. Like this is a storage only host. You're not going to do anything else on it. And so that kind of excludes my use cases, but I've heard good things about them. These guys even create that. Yeah, they think they even sell their own like HCI platform right here. So there's a question in the chat, Brandon, from Coffee Quilava asking about Unraid or TrueNAS scale. And I've obviously used both. I use production TrueNAS, I use TrueNAS scale as my quote production at home here. And it runs all my stuff in terms of like all my backend storage for Plex, for Nextcloud, like all that stuff is all stored in TrueNAS scale. And I've got a long history with that. Unraid is appealing to me, but it doesn't feel like I like ZFS. And I'll tell you why I like ZFS. One, I think that ZFS's big benefit is its resiliency and redundancy, and it's pretty robust. And especially if you've got a lot of data laying around, in your drives that doesn't change or doesn't get touched much, there's always this fear of, and you guys can in the chat can keep me honest here, but there's this concept on mechanical drives of bit rot. Like you've got some data on your drive, it's not being touched all that often, and therefore over time, it's a possibility that corruption could happen. You wouldn't even know until it was too late. And ZFS has got functionality built into it as the base part of the file system to basically continue to care and feed and water your data. And like the chat's blown up with lots of good opinions too. So, okay. So last time I looked at Unrated, it was more like MD style stuff, right? Just toss it in there and build your arrays. And there was no extra redundancy functionality. So that's an interesting. So Sakura's got some good answers there. And also join our Discord because I know that guy's in our Discord, so you can talk to him all the time too. Anyway, should have that ISO. Let's go back to our thing here. And let's go ahead and do the fun stuff that I didn't want to do. Virtual media, WebSocket error. That's wonderful. Let's see if I can still do it. Oh look, there's video share stuff. You guys can see behind the curtain. Let's see if this works. Choose mount. All right, fun times. I quit. I bail on it. Anyway, that was apparently not going to work out. Let's move on, friends, because that was an unfortunate thing, and I don't want to run downstairs and have to deal with it because that's what I'd have to do. All right, let's talk about this guy here. I want to talk. Oops, I want to go Control Tab over this. So this right here is essentially a block of aluminum that has been milled. I don't know if you can see through there. Like, oh yeah, you can see right through there. Just big, thick fins. This is the iKOOLCORE R2 Max. And we've done some like iKOOLCORE videos in the past. I've been really impressed with their, like you guys saw this little dude right here. This was the last one we reviewed, which is the R2. It's got 4 2.5 inch plugs in the back of it for Ethernet connections. It's got HDMI 2.0. It's got USB-C. It's PD powered. I really like this thing. Actually, let's go ahead and drop this screen here in full screen. There we go. So you can see more. So yeah, this guy here. And it's been, I mean, this is a great little box. That's also really neat how they put it together. If you watch the video, like it's a sandwich of two PCBs and there's flexible PCI Express cables that are interconnecting the two boards. It's a neat deal. And it does look like on the old SoundStream amps. You're absolutely right. Yeah, and then, yeah, exactly. Jason's got a V1 that I sent him. Anyway, and it takes an M.2, and this one also has a slot for Ethernet or Wi-Fi. So this little thing is everything, right? And it's neat. Now we enter in this bad boy here, and I'm walking around the mic here, so forgive me. This guy here has 4 ports. What makes it different is these first 2 outer ports are 10 gig base T, with the next 2 ports being 2.5 gig base T, then HDMI and a USB 3.2 type C. I think that's what that guy is right there. And then there's a barrel connector. I also believe that this port can be, the USB-C port can also be used for PD, but if you do that, then what's the point? It's got a little micro SD slot on the side, or TF as they call it, because they didn't license the micro SD. And there's some USB 3.0 ports in the front, type A's that is. 2 NVMe slots, 1 DDR5 SODIMM slot, and it's heavy. That's the way I would describe it. So let's go back up on the screen because I want to show this to you. And this is, I would love to say watch my video, and you should watch the video because I'll complain about it further, but I'm kind of hurt. I'm a little emotional hurt about it. This guy, what you see here is they also have a higher power version that's the N355, and it's got active cooling. This guy, as you just saw, completely passive cooled. And in the video, I'll do some thermal work so you can see it with the thermal camera. But there's a little bit of information here that I want to point out because it is the thing that steals the soul out of it. I'm zooming in here so we can really get in good. And that is right here. The 10 gig PHY on this box, the Ethernet PHY that runs those 2 10 gig ports, is a Marvell AQC 113C, right? It's a Marvell chipset. This is the thing right here. Those 2 AQC 113C NICs are not recognized or natively supported by pfSense, OpenSense, and ESXi. Now, I'll bring you back to the top of the screen here. They call this a next gen firewall. So water cool up, yeah. I mean, it's only, this is only an N1 100, so it's not like it'd be great. But if it is a next gen firewall that doesn't support or it has hardware in it that can't be supported for pfSense and OpenSense, I don't think we can call it a firewall. So that's kind of heartbreaking, right? I mean, yes. So the question was just asked by Adam. Yes, you could install PVE on it. You can install any Linux client. There's native Linux drivers for this guy. So you can, in fact, the testing I did with it initially, just to do some thermal testing, I threw Ubuntu desktop on it. Why did I throw Ubuntu desktop? Because I wanted to. Wasn't going to use it. And so it is a capable little mini PC that's fanless, and that's nice. But then, like, we start talking about this. The equivalent of this guy right here is $309 US. And that is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. The N355 version is $409. And that just kills me. And yeah, so Terry just hopped in the chat to make a comment about the UM773, right? There's another UM like this. I think it's a UM670. I have to look it up off the top of my head. But it's $410 and it's got an AMD Ryzen 5 something in it, and it's way more powerful. I mean, if you're looking for something like this that is low power, it's not that bad. I'm not gonna say it doesn't have any value, but I don't think we can call it a firewall. So I don't know what the value of calling a firewall is. And yeah, and like Sakura says in the chat, like FreeBSD needs to support it. I also understand, and this is just pure hearsay, so take it for what it's worth after doing some research on it. I don't think that there are actually drivers for FreeBSD coming from the guys over at Marvell. So I don't know how you're going to produce drivers third party for that chipset if you don't have support from the manufacturer. So it kind of feels like it's a bit stillborn, still a bit dead in the water there, which I hate to say. But so that guy is that's kind of a bummer. So that's the next video. That's coming out here in a couple of days. And I would love to know, like, just as an aside, and as you guys watch the video that I release and hear, if you think that I'm being too harsh, I want to know if you think I'm being too harsh. I want to know what you think, because that's important. This is not a unidirectional thing. So that's that. The one thing I did want to talk about that's like back related to not this, but what we were talking about earlier. Let's go back to full screen here. I wish there was a smoother way to do it. The storage server that I was hoping to build with you guys today on camera and have fun with, and Ventoy failed me. I should have just made an ISO and just plugged it in. I'm going full 100 gig on it. Now, when I say that, I want to be clear. When I say I'm going 100 gig, I mean I'm going to install a 100 gig ConnectX for network interface card in it. Doesn't mean it's going to go 100 gig. In the long term, I plan on doing stuff since you guys remember the video on the Proxinator downstairs. The Proxinator has a 100 gig card in it, and I've got a step down transceiver that takes it to 25 gig, and then I have a 25 gig DAC that goes SFP28, not SFP28, yeah, SFP28 to the Unify stuff. So that's something I'm looking forward to installing. Still got to buy a step down transceiver for that and everything, but there is a lot of weirdness when it comes to 100 gig and trying to find compatible interfaces. I don't know if you said Unify. I did say Unify. It is a Unify switch. That's this guy here. I've had some issues with the Mellanox gear, the ConnectX 3 and ConnectX 4, with it supporting a bunch of transceivers to convert either to go straight fiber or to convert to TrueNAS, right? And have it asynchronous in throughput. So that's something to be aware of, that if you end up going a route like this, you can get a DAC, especially if had issues with the DACs that convert SFP plus to base T Ethernet, and have them be async, where they will download it 100 megabit or 10 gigabit, whatever your interface is, but they will upload it like 6 or 7. It's not even like stepping into like 1, 2.55 or 10. It's like 7.5, and they don't show as being bad. So that's something to keep in mind. I've thought about making a video where I compare a bunch of DACs, but the TLDR is very dependent on the network cards you're interfacing with, right? So depends on what you got. And your Intel NICs are going to be far more restrictive than your Broadcoms, which don't buy Broadcom because they're bad people. Or the Connectics. And as an aside, I think I picked this guy up. This is a 100 gigabit network interface, just a single interface. I think I got it for like $70 off of eBay. So, and it's from a reputable seller. It's not some like outside in someone's trench coat. They're like, here's some 100 gig. You want it? Like, it was a good deal. So the price of those are coming down. I wish the price of switching would come down. Speaking of that, like, I think that Brandon was mentioning to me, let's go over here and like we look at the Unify stuff here. UI.com. This is heartbreaking for me because I think that, and I know there's some people in the chat right now who, yeah, MikroTik is probably is a good option, right, Jason? I think that might end up being a case to go that way, but I've been stunned. Where is it at? Is it campus aggregation? That's it. So Unify now has this ECS aggregation. This guy is high density. Can we get a zoom in on that? Enhance. No, that's the wrong direction. Enhance this way. Thanks for nothing. 600 gig, and then 48 ports of SFP28, which is that's a lot. And dual power supply. Like they're stepping into the big boy stuff when we start talking about that, right? And they're also stepping into the big boy prices at that, like $4,000. And I got to think that you could probably pick up a Arista or a Juniper switch for that much money too. What did Jason say? Jason said that MikroTik is dual PSU and $1,400. So there you go. I mean, that's be cool. I'm going to be contrary to you, Jason. I actually think that the Unify stuff is actually pretty nice, and I am telling you, we live in a world where Ubiquiti has finally stepped up to be pretty good. I mean, prove me wrong. I'm not going to say that it's not. I've got this guy right here, the USW Pro. That's my main switch, and it's 4 ports of SFP28, and then the 20 ports of 10 gig SFP Plus, and that's been a great switch too. And I get all the beautiful. That's it, friends off. Oh, okay, cool. Well, I lost a friend and a YouTube viewer today because I said Unify's not that bad. So, but I can't. Like Skur said, he's using Arista switches. Arista is good stuff too. The Arista stuff though, can you get let's go here. RISTA.com. The thing I don't like about Aristas, and this is silly, is that I believe they're owned by HP, right? Isn't Arista owned by HP? And it just hurts me inside to send money to HPE. Like, could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. Oh, that's Aruba. I'm sorry. You're right. Thank you, Brandon. Arista's not owned by HPE. Aruba is, but because HP, yeah. And the chat is filling up. I was incorrect, but HPE is trying to buy Juniper right now really bad because they want their Wi-Fi stuff. So, and I think that the FTC or somebody, federal government has sued to prevent that because of non-compete competition stuff. So, but the Arista stuff, then, yeah, I've seen they've got a really interesting dashboard, and I don't know if we got a question there, so throw that up in a second, Brandon. But do you get the dashboard for the Arista stuff if you run old gear? That's a question that I'm not sure. All right, so George had a question. Said, "Hi, could you give me a recommendation for what SAN software to go with? I'm currently running VMware and have access to most licensing, including vSAN, but some friends are telling me that it's not worth the route." So you, sir, are asking a good question. This is going to be a murky question. I think that I will say first and foremost, if you have a cluster of 3 or more hosts and you have HCL drives, so let's say that you've got drives that are on the VMware HCL, hardware quality or hardware control list, whatever it is, so that they are supported for VMware and for vSAN. Building a vSAN, as long as you have a sufficient amount of storage on it, is pretty bulletproof. If you're trying to shoehorn in a bunch of consumer non HCL listed hardware, stay far away from it. So that's kind of in terms of vSAN. Like if you've got enterprise gear or used old enterprise gear, but they're still in the HCL, vSAN is nice if you have the licensing. Although I will say that the problem with Broadcom is that if you have licensing access to that now, you probably don't for very long, because you're probably something like a VMUG Advantage user with old licensing that's going to die in a year. So I'd probably start considering about changing your tech stack. But if you have access to it because for whatever reason you've got access to VMware licensing, and you're not opposed to having a 3-tier storage. So what's 3-tier? So hyperconverged HCI, and I know a lot of you guys know this stuff, but just bear with me. So in hyperconverged, right, you've got everything in the boxes, and it's basically hyperconverged. You can look at something like TrueNAS scale, which I still have open somewhere on this. I think if I just like shift tab back to it, where are you at? Oh, so if you're TrueNAS scale and you're running virtual machines and you're running containers and you're running your storage off it, that'd be considered hyperconverged. It's all in one box. vSAN in VMware is considered hyperconverged, even if you like have 15 or 18 hosts, it doesn't matter. So thank you. I appreciate that, Square. A 3-tier storage concept is you've got your hard drives, or excuse me, you've got your storage nodes, which are your compute, I'm going to hit myself. Sorry. The compute nodes, which are, your servers running VMware ESXi. You've got your network store or network connectivity, which is part of that 3-tier. And then your storage is separate. So your 3 tiers are compute is separate, network is separate, and storage is separate. And if you're doing a 3-tier, you're looking at using either iSCSI, which if you're going to look at the difference between iSCSI and fiber channel, go iSCSI. So there's iSCSI, fiber channel, and then there's NFS. So you can do all 3 of those as storage protocols for connecting up storage to ESXi. It's up to you how you provide that stuff. TrueNAS scale, for example, because we're still looking at it right now. The nice thing about TrueNAS scale is that it was, I'm sure it probably still is technically, was on the supported best practices list for VMware. They don't list this stuff anymore, unfortunately, because who knows what that situation is. But you can run iSCSI all day long off TrueNAS scale. You can run NFS all day long off TrueNAS scale, or you can do it on any number of other platforms that use it. Fiber channel is a completely different beast, and I'm pretty sure the only place you can really effectively use fiber channel is if you have a fiber channel SAN, even if you're doing fiber channel over Ethernet or FCOE or something like that. But to answer your question, if I was to build it myself, the way I used to run it here before I moved to Proxmox, is I would use, if I wanted the highest performance, I would have block level iSCSI running in a third-party storage solution like TrueNAS scale, and that was shared storage to my ESXi hosts, my virtual machines. So that's how I did it. I did it for a long time, and it worked phenomenally well. It was fast. I mean, a lot of this stuff is always going to come down to what are your storage, like your endpoint is your storage on spinning disks? Is it on SSDs? Is it on NVMe? Like how do you have your storage provisioned and laid out? What is, if you're using TrueNAS scale and ZFS, how many pipes or how many separate data VDEVs do you have so you can like stack up and read and write in concurrency and all that kind of stuff? There's a lot to it. So that's a lot of words, but hopefully that answers that question, because it really it runs the gamut. You can do whatever you want, and it's going to really depend on ultimately what you have for hardware, what you think is valuable for you in terms of like fault tolerance and redundancy and reliability at home or wherever. And then also third, like if you're doing this to work and practice your day job at home, that's the way to go. Like just, do what you're doing at work. That way you can have it. So Rule A20 says, did you have it do multipath IO for iSCSI for ESXi if you have multiple hosts? No. And the reason why I did not do that is one, I only had a single 25 gig connection off of my TrueNAS scale box. So multipathing doesn't really give me anything. All of the hosts are different interfaces. And so the other thing is, and back in versions of ESXi, back in like 6 and 7 and older storage arrays, like ever heard of equalogic? Equalogic was a brand that Dell bought and then basically pooped on and killed. And then Compellent, those arrays, in the beginnings back in the day, like they were all big on multipathing. Like multipathing is the answer for high performance because you can fill up those queues and you can just have lots of redundancy. When the later generations of compellent came out and the later generations of storage, and including like version 7 and even ultimately version 8, they kind of dropped multipathing as like a beneficial function to use. I remember, and BK might remember this because him and I used to work together way back in the day. Uh, ESXi 6.5, there were problems with multipathing where a path would drop for some arbitrary reason and you would lose a data stream and the host would just evacuate the disk. It was not a good time. Yeah, Roll20 said, good to know I was spoiled because of the Pure does all that for us at work. Yeah, yeah. And I will say that iSCSI is fantastic. It's phenomenal. I don't know why there's reluctance from anybody to not roll with iSCSI. I know there's a lot of neckbeards out there who will say, oh, Fiber Channel is still the best. Like Fiber Channel is this, Fiber Channel is that. Like, no, Fiber Channel it feels like a dinosaur. And you can hashtag prove me wrong. So, excuse me, I'm going to take a drink. But, yeah, that's, if you can do iSCSI, that's great. Well, and like Secure says, like he uses NFS. I use to back up what you're saying. Even right now, I primarily am using NFS for my storage protocols because the benefit of NFS over iSCSI or Fiber Channel or whatever is that storage is shared then. So I'll picture this. If you're on VMware, or actually if you're really on any sort of storage system that's using iSCSI, or excuse me, virtualizations using iSCSI, you provision out a volume and you make that volume available to your target, available to whatever's you're doing it to, right? If you have a stack of virtual hosts, they can all talk to it because it's formatted in VMFS or something like that, so it can have that multi concurrent connections and redirect from the same volume. The problem is that storage is provisioned solely for that LUN, right? So if you're going to carve out a chunk of data for NFS, iSCSI, and you're like, okay, this is going to be 2 terabytes of purely iSCSI. Then what you've got is a 2 terabyte chunk that can only be used by iSCSI. And if you're doing it right, you are block level carving that out. So it's not even visible to, if you do iSCSI in TrueNAS scale, you can do block level. And when you do that, like the storage disappears out of the host. Like it doesn't exist because it's being turned into this nebulous bucket you can't look into. And that's fine if you're only doing virtual machine stuff. But the nice thing about using NFS, which again, that's what I use predominantly for everything these days. The nice thing about NFS is that other things can write to that storage because NFS is a file sharing protocol. It is way more higher level up in the stack, right? So your operating system can read into that storage because NFS is reading and writing, whatever's talking to it over NFS. The data is being stored in whatever the OS of the storage system is using, so you can access that data. Meanwhile, likewise, you can share out. I can give you a 2 terabyte chunk of NFS, that's provisioned out via NFS, and all your virtual hosts can write to it. But you can also read and write out of that storage as well without interrupting those other connections. That's what you do. I think is the best way to do it in a home lab. I don't recommend doing that in your day job as a business. Like if your job is to create fully redundant and reliable infrastructure, you don't use NFS because you have bought a storage array that is specifically for your hypervisors, right? For your virtual hosts and to run virtual machine workloads. It's not mixed duty. It's not like also having potentially access to pull data out of it. And so that's Sean, welcome. So that's kind of the end all be all. Use NFS all day long for home. That's what I'm doing now. Like, I mean, NFS, I've essentially stopped using those protocols like iSCSI because they're not good, but because they limit you, and I don't want to be limited. So that's the answer to that. So Terry said, had an MD 3200i with 3 MD 1400s using multinational. I think you mean multi-channel, I'm guessing. 450 VMs, 3 node Hyper-V cluster, limped for 6 months with 1 valve controller. Yeah, I mean, that's I think you meant think you meant multi-channel. I'm not sure. Roll 20 said, yeah, Pure is awesome. We went from VNX to Pure. Going from VNX to Pure is like going from like a Honda Civic to a Ferrari, though. So that's not a fair comparison, right? VNX is who makes VNX? That's a data domain, right? That's data, which is EMC, which is Dell. Yeah, I've had my hand in some of those, and those are not great systems. Not great at all. But anyway, so we got a little bit of time left. Let's talk about something that was boiled up, and I want opinions. I want thoughts on this. So earlier this week, it was announced that, let's go over here. I'm going to do a shift tab. Let's find it. It was announced that Windows 11 version 24H2 is dropping support. When it rolls out, it will no longer support anything 10th generation Intel and older, which got a lot of people riled up. And we started looking through this is the supported Intel processor list here. And going through this, yeah, we'll get down here a little bit further. Hopefully you guys can, let's enhance. Enhance, there we go. Scrolling down here, we basically start at the 11th gens, and which means that if you want to run Windows 11 on something, the newest Windows 11, you need an 11th gen Intel processor or newer, and that just doesn't feel right. And then to throw some spiciness onto it, we were digging around earlier today, and we found that if I go here, so this is the list of, let's go back to the top here. This is a list of AMD supported CPUs for Windows 11 24H2. And what we find as we scroll down here, get past, I saw Athlon and I was like, what? Like, what's going on? And then Brandon had to tell me that apparently they spun up the Athlon name and they're using it for like their cheap low power stuff, which, I mean, I wouldn't touch that with the 10-foot pole, but what? Okay. But getting down here further, like they're still supporting Ryzen 3. And okay, what era did Ryzen 3 come out? Let's see. Let's open the tab here. Click in the search here. Ryzen 3 come out. So I mean that's wow. God, time feels like it is just not flown by. This feels, is it just me or does 2019 just feel like yesterday? Whatever. So, I mean, this is 2019. So we're looking at 6 years, but still that's supported, right? And, I want to go back here. Nope. Where's that? Let's go back to this. But considering that the Intels are stopping at the 11th, that's just like, or starting at the 11th for Windows 11 24H2. That's just mind blowing. Question is, and in the Discord, there was some conversation about this. And now that we've got a bunch of different people here, I want to know what your opinions are. What's the motivation? What do you think is the motivation behind Windows, Microsoft dropping 10th gens and older support for Windows 11 24H2? Because so there's a lot of people who feel that it's a money grab. Like maybe Intel went over to Microsoft and said, can you help us sell more because we're hurting real bad? I'm not going to say that's not a possibility, but I think Adam, I think you're right. I think Adam is possibly onto it. And Brandon, if you can pop up Adam's comment there, I think that it might be related to TPM. However, that shouldn't, like, I'm trying to think back if the 10th gens, remind me, did the 10th gen Intel CPUs have on-die TPMs or not? I know that, like I said, the AMD stuff does. Like the AMDs had their 10th, starting with the Ryzens. Obviously, the Ryzen 3 had a TPM on die, so you could just not have to worry about it. Back in the old days, you had to like buy a TPM. Yeah, okay. So Levick said it's TPM 2 has been on die since the 8th gen. So I don't know what the logic is here, but the logic is a little bitter to swallow. I just, downstairs right now, I've got a 10th gen little mini PC that's going to replace my 6th gen mini PC that I use down in my garage when I'm 3D printing stuff. And I bought it used, and it has Windows 11 on it. Obviously, it's got the older version of Windows 11, right? The one that's not this this 24H2. But man, like that seems like a really hard cutoff that then it completely excludes all older hardware that is potentially usable. So I'm this interesting times. We're living in some interesting times and interesting stuff going on, and I just don't quite understand what the motivation is. Why AMD seems to be somewhat excluded. By the way, if we go back here, let's look at the. Let's pop a new tab and click here. When did the Intel 10th gen come out? Yeah, so they were released at the same time. So they're obviously intentionally dropping the 10th gens, whereas the AMD stuff is not. So take that for what it's worth. So what it would, and you can always, yeah, there's a lot of comments, and Nux love Ubuntu. That should be like a tagline. So you can always move to some other platform. It's not like it's the end of the world, but I think it's problematic for. I really like going to those computer stores that are like they're the places that get all of the used gear from the enterprises that is they're cycling through, and then they basically throw it up on eBay, and it's like a secondhand market, like Free Geek. I don't know if you guys have heard of Free Geek. That's one of the established companies. I know there's one out here in Portland, and there's others, but I love going there and looking around because there's all this old gear, and you're like, I could do something with that. My brain says I could make some magic with that, but to know that you're limiting it's kind of a painful deal. But I don't know, friends. So John said, I moved most of my PCs to Pop! OS minus the gaming and editing machines, which is on Windows 11. Yeah, or you can move to Mac OS for your editing, just not gaming. That's what I do. I use Mac OS for all the editing stuff that I do. But yeah, so guys, let's see here. Do we have anything else worth I really wish we could have gotten this to work. This is maybe next time. Was that because cool. Maybe next week we will go through the process of doing this, and I'll just have an actual ISO burned to a USB stick and not be doing the Ventoy dance, because this is not the first time Ventoys hurt me deeply. You would pay for that, Ventoy. So next time someone says to you, have you heard of Ventoy? Just say, yeah, I watched a dude spectacularly fail on top of, on a live stream. So anyway, so guys, we're getting close. I think we'll call it, since that's all I've got. I'm just going to say it one more time, just one more time. You guys come and join us on our Discord. That's where we like to hang out. We talk about all things nerdy when it comes to HomeLab, self-hosting, that kind of stuff. It's a great place to just like hang out with like-minded people. I should go back to my view here so that you can just see me. We're going to do this next week. We're going to do this every week, mostly. And I'm going to try to get some, thinking about getting another special guest here sometime soon. So we'll see if I can get somebody like maybe the fine Mr. Tom Lawrence or something like that to hang out with us. But till then, we will see you. Get in the Discord, hang out with us, watch the videos. Brandon and I are going to shoot a podcast here this weekend. We'll put that out soon. So thank you so much. We will see you in 7 days. Thanks, guys.